already, and it's Mr. Poilievre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Welcome back and Happy New Year. I, along with the conservative members of the committee, joined with Monsieur Gabriel Saint-Marie in signing a letter to restart meetings early. I think it's time we get back to work. We have an emergency in this country, and it is that our economy has become a gigantic inflated balloon. The asset class in which we see this balloon most inflated is, of course, housing. Bloomberg rates Canada's housing bubble as the second worst on planet Earth, and Demographia says that Toronto and Vancouver are the fifth and the second most unaffordable housing markets in Canada, in the world, excuse me. They are ahead of such places as Manhattan, Chicago, London, England, even tiny little Singapore in its little island out in the middle, out in the Pacific, has more affordable housing relative to local incomes. Now, when Mr. Trudeau took office, you could buy the average house in Canada for $450,000. I think most people are chuckling when they think of that. We now have to pay $720,000 for the average house across Canada. In Toronto and Vancouver, it's now over $1 million. The year ending November of 2021 saw the fastest housing inflation ever, according to the Canadian Real Estate Association. Home prices are up 58% under this prime minister, including 20% in the last year alone, all while real wages have been flat. It is a real quandary how house prices have gone up by more than half when the underlying wages that are used to buy housing have stayed completely flat over that time period. Now, all of this raises the metaphysical question: where is the money coming from? We can all debate the cause of rising house prices. What we can't debate is that there are real dollars buying these houses. When the housing purchase happens, a real transaction occurs, and from buyer to seller. So this money is coming from somewhere. In late 2021, the year-over-year increase in the volume of housing purchases was 80%, going from 250 billion to 450 billion in 1 year, an 80% increase, something we've never seen before. The question the committee must answer is this: where is the money coming from? It's not coming from a strong economy or growing wages. We have neither. But it must be coming from somewhere, because everything comes from somewhere and nothing comes from nowhere. Answering that question, solving that riddle, will explain why this balloon is inflating so fast and abruptly, and allow us to halt the inflation before the balloon bursts altogether with devastating consequences for families and our overall economy. That is why I proposed the following motion. And Mr. Chair, your clerk has got notice of this motion. He, in both official languages, the clerk should have been able to circulate it. And it reads that the committee, pursuant to Standing Order 108, undertake a study of inflation in the current economy, including housing inflation, food inflation, repatriating supply chains for strategic goods, and any other issue the committee deems pertinent to the question of inflation, and that the committee report back to the House no later than May 31st, 2021, that hearings begin on Monday, January 17th, and continue on Wednesday, January 19th, Friday, January 21st, Monday, January 24th, and Friday, January 28th, and that each of these meetings are 3 hours in length, that this study include the following witness testimony: the finance minister alone for 3 hours with a 10-minute opening statement, the governor of the Bank of Canada alone for 3 hours with a 10-minute opening statement, Peter Rutledge, the superintendent of financial institutions, and Rami Bowers, President and CEO of the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, for 3 hours together. Senior management at Sagan and Canada Guarantee for 2 hours, the chief statistician of Statistics Canada, and any officials responsible for the Consumer Price Index and taking housing costs, and any witnesses invited by committee members. That during hearings, the chair enforced the rule that a witness response to a question take no longer than the time taken to ask the question, that the study include 11 meetings. I've since got some feedback from members by a text message that some would prefer to have a 10 meeting study rather than a 12 meeting study. I'm okay with that. And I'm open-minded to adjusting any of the logistical aspects of this motion if such should be my colleagues' wish. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. So discussion on this. I see Mr. Blakey, and then I've got Mr. Beach on next. Mr. Blakey?
Thank you very much. So first of all, I'd just like to say that I certainly think it's very important that the committee turn its attention to figuring out what the cost drivers are in the housing market. And we know that that's a real concern for Canadians who are trying to get into the real estate market, or who have family who are trying to get into the real estate market. And that's something that even well before the pandemic was getting harder and harder and harder. The trend line that has been leading to this crisis in housing is a long one and goes back quite a ways. And so I do think it would be a productive use of the committee's time to turn its attention to that. And glad also to see a suggestion reflected that we look at some of the other serious cost pressures on Canadian households, including the very real cost increases that people are seeing at the grocery store, and some discussion of supply chains and how those are affecting the price of goods in the Canadian economy. The language here is a little prescriptive in terms of the solution, and I'm quite on board. In fact, was just discussing with my colleague and NDP health critic Don Davies earlier.